wartet.
All right, I'm ready to go. Let's fade this down, bring this up. And hi, okay, and here I am. Hi, I normally don't have the regular setup on the morning show, so forgive me if it's a little business-like this early. I apologize. Hold on, I have to turn on my little side lights, otherwise I won't be cut out in the green screen. It's just not. There we go, that's better. And I've got top knot on today, or back knot, or slip knot, or something. Anyways, hi, good morning, happy Monday. Glad you could join me. I'm going to, today's show will end slightly before 10 o'clock because I'm going to be on Midas Touch. And I think we're probably pre-taping it because of their timing. So from 10 to 10:30, I need to do that. So just letting you know, a little business this morning. And I'll be on Midas Touch whenever they post it, whatever their timetable is. And it's going to be a great time. And I'm very excited. And yeah, fun times. And we've obviously got a lot to talk about in terms of what's trendages. What's trending, and quite frankly, I'm sort of amazed at the hold on, why is that so high up? There we go. Move that down. Thank you. And can I scoot it down? Yeah, I can. There we go. I of course some of you may have noticed got up curiously early this morning because after I fed Chip because his meow is finally reaching almost adulthood, but it's still cute enough to go ew, like that. And I'm like, and he starts purring, and then I have to pet him, and then I'm for it if you can raid Midas. That'd be great, especially if we go live. I don't know whether they do their stuff live or not, and not many people can do what I do, just to let it all hang out and not apparently get 70 or so episodes of their show kicked off of online later on. That said, what's going on with Sarah Silverman? I don't know. Sarah has a podcast, which I think is a mistake. I don't do podcasts myself. I live stream because this is it. Podcasts tend to be events in your week. If you're doing them once a week, it's kind of like doing the John Oliver show or something. You put all your eggs in that one basket, and it's not a bad thing per se. It's just, this is the difficulty of doing it. And I think, especially in stressful times, you can feel like you can't say everything you need to say. I look very Jedi today. Thanks very much. I appreciate that. That's nice. Yeah, podcasts do involve 5 other people. This is true. Joe Rogan says I ain't racist. Oh, yes. We saw that. Yeah. And you can't. A little bit like the Highlander. Okay. These are all, I used to do my hair back like this all the time, and everybody's like, what are you doing? And now there's like 3 or 4 cultural references. Gene Simmons used to wear his hair like this all the time, too, when I was growing up. That used to be the only one I got, referenced. He would also top knot it. But anyways, point I'm trying to make is, I think there's a lot of pressure around it. And there's also been a big push on both sides of the aisle, less so on the right these days, because they've sort of moved into they lost everything, so they don't care. Not that they ever did. Not about doing anything right, but they felt like, well, we won, so we have to, act like winners or something. Now they can act like losers, and that's what they're doing. And so they've freed up a lot. The Crowders of the world and stuff they're basically moved into 1991, 1985 shock jock zone. So they could just kind of talk about whatever, and then if we get kicked off, it's points for us, that kind of stuff. Whereas somebody in Sarah's position, it seems, while her podcast is presumably the podcast of a comedian and therefore centered on laughter, I think has gotten weighted down by the topics it covers over time and the inability of those involved to handle it. Do not help me pick up something heavy if you have a bad back. And the same thing applies to emotional issues or political issues or psychological issues. You're doing more harm than good because now we have another person to worry about. And so, I don't regularly watch the show. I haven't been on it. I don't think I'll be invited on anytime soon. And I love Sarah. I think she's hilarious. And I think in some ways, the current climate denies her natural comedic expression. So she's a little trapped and probably a little panicked that somebody might go back to some of her old jokes and judge her based as if those were real statements instead of jokes about sort of who she's playing at the time, who she is. And she does, I'm talking about Sarah Silverman. She also does ice skate uphill against the fact that she's beautiful. She's a beautiful woman. And one of the reasons I've told you guys many times that Don Rickles could get away with everything he could get away with was because he looked like a frog. There's an element of an understanding in society that ugly people are always ice skating uphill, no matter what group they're in. And every group has their ugly people. And so ugly people in the privilege stack are always near the bottom. And so even if you don't like what they're saying, most people shrug it off. Rachel has COVID. Rachel does not have COVID. No, she's on hiatus till April. Michelle brings up a really good point. Joe Rogan is not a doctor. Why would anybody taking medical advice for him? Now, that's something as a conversation I think is worth having because there's a tendency to reinforce people who don't deserve reinforcement when you go after them as if they're a legitimate source. It's sort of in a backhanded way presumes that their opinion has more worth than it does. So you by equating misinformation and disinformation with the same amount of weight and using those words in overlap, where a misinformed person is passing along their misinformation versus an aware liar is disinforming people, is passing along disinformation, where there seems to be this kind of mid-level nothing between the two. Like as far as people's perception, they just kind of, it's a wash as far as most people are concerned when it comes to misinformation, disinformation. And I think they're both very distinct. Misinformation is an accident built on an accident. Disinformation is the intentional dissemination of falsehoods. And when you don't make a distinction between the two, and you say, somebody like, we have to watch out for misinformation on, which is why, by the way, government officials say misinformation instead of disinformation, because there's a whole layer of reality when you're not just talking online, what those words mean in legal terms. Disinformation is an order of magnitude more important and destructive than misinformation in that regard. When you start talking about misinformation, disinformation as if they're the same thing, and then you do that in regard to somebody like Joe Rogan, what you effectively do is reinforce a huge chunk of his audience that thinks they're silencing him because he's the only one telling the truth. And that's the dangerous part, because anybody have that friend who doesn't like vegetarianism or veganism, and when you bring it up or if you talk to them about eating more vegetables, their response is, man, I feel like having a big steak. That's their emotional response to it. It's a bit childish, but we all know somebody like that or some equivalent, or you might be that person. And when that's your reflex, your anti-authoritarian impulse will take over, and you'll have more of a tendency to dive into something you know isn't good for you just because the person that's telling you the thing that's good for you is telling you in such a way that it's authoritarian and to you, and that's off-putting. So you'd rather do yourself some damage. So that's the tough part. That's when you make disinformation and misinformation the same thing, and then when what you're really accusing Rogan of is disinformation, the active part of it, but you know full well he's kind of just a dumbass about these things, and that's also his out. He's one of these people, just like Jimmy Dore, who goes, I'm just a comedian. I just doing a thing in my garage. I'm just doing this. I'm just asking questions. It's the same. It's a lighter fallback of the Fox News bullshit shield, right? You give them more space to do that. I don't believe that that Joe Rogan is engaged in disinformation, which would be a dangerous attempt to, turn people off of vaccines and that kind of stuff. I do think he's horribly misinformed on a lot of things, and his own ego gets in the way, and he can't either admit it or recognize that weakness, or go, well, yeah, I'm just asking questions, I'm just having guests on, and then the weight of the number of people he has on that reinforces what he already believes is enormous. So, and again, that's the, Elizabeth says he's an idiot. And that very well may be the case. I mean, it's a definitive word. The problem is that when you treat him like he's not one, like he should know better or he can know better, instead of recognizing what he is, it's the same reason why I don't take Trump's threats seriously. It's why I don't believe that Jan 6 was a dry run and that next time they're going to get a better shot at it, because there is no second chance for Trump. He's fucked. And I'm not going to pretend that he has strengths that he does not have. I will not. I will not give him that much credit, because it reinforces that the illusion that he could, and the people that might believe that there's a reason for this, like maybe they should show up at the Capitol again. The only reason they're ever going to believe it is because, oh shit, if these people are afraid of him, he must still have that strength. And I am not. I'm not afraid of him, and I refuse to be. The same thing is true of whatever is said on Joe Rogan's podcast. Maybe you should try sober broadcasting. Well, that's part of it too, Brenda. He is often stoned while he does the show. And that's also, you can check some of his rambles and go, oh, that's weed. I see. That's weed talking. Yeah, fact. 1-6 is not going to happen again. It is not. True. It's a produced show, not a podcast out of his basement. That's, I agree. Right. Staff bring on these people. Not just Joe. I agree. Well, it's because it's grown into this thing. I'm saying that's their verbal fallback on the air. I believe me, the Jimmy Dore show, because the Joe Rogan Experience has like 9 people working on it and had some regular co-hosts occasionally, just like the Jimi Hendrix Experience had a band. The Jimmy Dore show has 4 or 5 people working on it, but it's still the Jimmy Dore show, which I always find funny. Oh, is it now? Is it the Jimmy Dore show? Because it seems like everybody else who comes on as a guest is doing actual jokes, and Jimmy goes, ha ha, and then quotes their joke as if it's his, and then pushes a button and they disappear and it's the Jimmy Dore show again. That's kind of amazing to me. Like that point of order, like even Russell Brand doesn't go that far. Right? Russell Brand's just kind of Russell Brand, as big as a dick as he is. His show is just him, right? That's what you call the show when it's just you. That's fine. But Jimmy is and has had like 5 people working on it, including his wife or girlfriend, whoever she is, and then like Ron, that the redheaded dude who used to be on all the time, was gone. And yeah, it had all these people. It's like a little panel all the time, but it's the Jimmy Dore show. Real Time with Bill Maher is still Real Time with Bill Maher because there's other guests. He's the host. It's like the Tonight Show with Johnny Carson. That's why he wanted it that way. But it's just interesting to me. You know, I've always noticed this in terms of like Kiss is my reference for a lot of things, as many of you know. And there's a point in the show, if you've seen Kiss live, especially in the last 10 years, where Gene and Paul both do some sort of a rigging in the show. They're rigged up and they fly, right? During the show. Kind of Cirque-ish. Is a very distinct personality thing that shows up in who they are. Paul, who is, I've always been a huge Paul Stanley fan, and he's always been about respect for the fans and appreciating them. Gene has always been this kind of character who's above it all and sort of focused on the brand and all those kind of things. And when they do their thing in the show, Gene does God of Thunder, and he stands there and he throws his arms up, and they lift him up to a platform where he is high above the audience, where you can barely see him, quite frankly, most of the time. He's way up in the rafters. Meanwhile, Paul, when he does his flying part, puts his foot in a ring, essentially, grabs a hold of this wire, and they take him out to a platform in the audience, and he performs closer to the crowd. Right? That distinction should matter. He could have gone up in another part of the rigging. He could have been back and they could have had more cameras on him. He does it way back here. You can go anywhere. Where do you choose to go? And I always love the fact that Paul chose to go out into the crowd, right? Whereas Gene, if I had my druthers, I'd get farther away from these fuckers, is a little bit what's going on, right? It's just it's just I don't think, and by the way, he doesn't have disdain. He's not a bad guy for doing this. Gene is not an evil villain for doing this, just what he does. And God knows he may, after all these years, have mild crowd anxiety. It's none of my goddamn business, but it is indicative in many ways of sort of a personality choice. And the same thing is true of how you name your show, The Hal Sparks Megaworldwide literally was just me shaving radio program off of that. And Megaworldwide came up because somebody miswrote HSRP. My show was originally called the Hal Sparks radio program because I was being kind of like, I don't know, I'm doing radio now, a decade ago, whatever. And so I did say indicative. It's true, Andy, you caught me. And somebody wrote HSRPM, like rotations per minute, like it was radio. And so they'd written it in on one of the graphics by accident. And so I had to come up with what the M meant. And I tried to come up with something funny because we were live streaming. It was when I was Ustreaming at the time. I was using Ustream back in the day. And I was like, well, we're all over the planet. Let's call it Megaworldwide or something massive. Where I tried to make it one word, and Megaworldwide was what I came up with, right? So anyways, point being is that there's a lot of weight given to Joe Rogan by how he's being addressed in the media that is undeserved and unclaimed in his circumstance, and drives a certain chunk of his supporters, I would say a massive amount of them, in the direction, into the waiting arms of that misinformation. I mean, he was pushing the Russian disinfo campaign about the moon landing for a long time. The Russians decided a long time ago that if they couldn't beat us in the space race, they would foment this idea that ours never happened. What a great way to do it. So much cheaper. You don't even have to put spaceships up in the sky. You don't have to try to get to the moon. Yeah. Yeah, that's right, CSL. That was jacked back in the day. That was, ooh. So the Russians decided that they would just foment and they'd find all these conspiracy theorists and give them a leg up, boost them all over the place. So there. Yeah, if the Earth is flat, is the moon flat? Yes, it's a bunch of plates rotating around. So, did Rogan have the Proud Boys on his show? No, Rogan had Gavin McInnes, who started the Proud Boys and then had to leave the Proud Boys when they got charged with stuff on. Anyways, that's sort of immaterial in that regard. My strategy in many places, in many circumstances like this, is to only give credit where credit is genuinely due, and not to overcredit anyone for anything, especially when it comes to intellect or strategy or capability. Because a lot of times, one of the best ways you can demoralize yourself and make it so that you don't act in your own best interest is because you think you might lose. Even if it's a small part, you won't go full in. Yes, Magoo, agreed.
Magoo.
So I think it's crucial to never give your enemy more credit than they deserve. You should take every threat seriously. And there's a great story in, was it Politico this morning? Somebody was, I'll have to look it up, about how Biden learned a lesson from Crimea and the way the Russians were behaving in 2014 after the Maidan, after Euromaidan, and thought that, since he wasn't president, all he could do was advise Obama on these things, and Obama didn't want to get into another war, and largely the coalition that had put Obama in office would look down on military excursions. In many ways, post-Cold War, the same way the coalition that put Clinton in office stopped us from intervening in Rwanda. Because after Bush 1's Iraq policy and the entirety of the Cold War and the number of breakout things that had happened during that time, a lot of people were, and still stinging from Vietnam in a lot of ways because it had only been a couple, 20 years. Which, again, if you're thinking in terms of today, 1982 is... Vietnam is 2011, 2010, right? So by 1990, you're talking about it, it's only 2000, right? So a lot of the folks were just like, no war, no nothing, no war, no none, never. And because of that, it takes your foot off the gas. And in some areas where we could have helped, we didn't. And the presumption is, in the based on the stories out of the Obama White House during the Crimea stuff, was that the Obama administration was caught off guard by how bold Putin acted in that moment. Nobody expected him to go that far, and especially with Ukraine on its heels the way it did, which in retrospect makes total sense if you look at the demographics and the mechanics of Russia as an economy and how kind of screwed they are. Hindsight being 2020, you should have been able to see it coming. But Putin was apparently under the impression that Biden had a lot of the same advisors coming into the White House with him that Obama did, not recognizing that some of those folks were like, okay, no, we want to get out of Afghanistan, but this is not that. And this is a sovereign country with a functioning government, and letting these people, or a new revolution that might actually turn into something genuinely sovereign, away from the corruption of the Russian government, and it needs room to grow. But if the Russians move in and take over, they're gonna drown it in the bathtub, like the Republicans want them to be able to do with our government. And Putin apparently was under the impression that because Biden had a lot of the same advisors, that they're telling him the same thing that they told Obama, or that what they told Obama was what he did. And that's not the case. And so he's kind of caught off guard by this. And we're about 2 weeks, we got 2 weeks more of hard land where the ground will be strong enough to hold tanks before it starts getting mushy, which would really suck. So for them. but make it, easier to repel in terms of, a military excursion, and be like an old school World War I kind of a problem as far as getting troops into an area that they have to occupy, because Ukraine does have the benefit of being their own country. If you want to go take somebody's stuff, you got to stay there after you've taken it. Yeah. So, anyways, looking at it, our biggest problem will be the world tilts even a degree further either way. Carolinas or weather change. Oh, as far as weather, well, no, we'll be all right. Yeah. So all right. I have half an hour. Cool. Shall we look at some trendages? The Peng Shui thing is heartbreaking and awful, and nobody believes her, denying the sexual assault allegations against the Communist Party leader in the year when they're going to pick, when he's on Team Xi Jinping, that guy, and that they're going to install Xi Jinping for another huge round, or at least another 6 years. Again, there is some idea like leader for life stuff that people look at people like Deng Xiaoping or they look at Kim Jong-il and think, well, that really means forever. Not recognizing that these people, in the stress of their job and all this kind of stuff, have their bodies give out, their brains give out. People wait in the wings, sharpening their knives the entirety of their rule. It's not all it's cracked up to be. So there's been some talk about the Shanghai contingent, who are, followers of Deng Xiaoping, who don't like the way Xi Jinping is taking the country, who are just kind of waiting for him to make one misstep. Now, there's been dozens of them: floods, energy, their economy's taking a shit. Every country in the world, especially us, is reshoring factories out of there or moving them someplace else, like Vietnam or Cambodia or Thailand or India. India will be the next big move. Don't answer super chats, Al. I do sometimes, but I don't automatically. Don't super chatting. Let's see. Generally threw you under the bus over the gig. I don't know what that means. Oh, I see. Gotcha. Oh, about the thing? I told you he was pissed. The earth is square. I see, Derp. Thank you. And my arms are looking jacked. Well, thank you. Thanks very much. I've been working on chest, so that makes my arms big. That's always been the issue that I've always had, is that it's relatively easy for me to build my arms, which is why my chest never grew. So I have to do all sorts of compensatory stuff to make it happen, and it's working finally. A little bit. So wish me luck. It's going to take a few months. You're watching Hal Sparks Mornings, Megaworldwide. Thanks, Bill. It's a morning show I do Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. It's sort of an offshoot of the afternoon show, 3:00 p.m. Pacific time, where we look at clips and all that kind of stuff, and it just takes up a lot of our time. We don't really have a lot of room to move and speak philosophically about things. I don't have an opportunity to say things that will get cut out of context years from now and make me look terrible. I'm not really worried. But Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 9 a.m. Pacific. And for a couple hours, or an hour today, because I've got to jump over to the lovely folks at, that reminds me, I got to turn on my virtual camera in case they pop on and I'm still messing around over here. There you go. Now that's done. Cool. All right. Thanks. Push-ups are very good, but they need more weight. Yep, it's true, Foggy. It's sad. Have you seen how Arnold's muscles look now? Yikes. Yeah, but he is in his late 70s. I mean, cut the dude some slack. News on Pepsi Max. News on that after I get back from the cruise, just so you know. Okay. So, anyways, I call bullshit. The IOC met with her in person, and she denied the allegations and then said she's retiring from tennis. They're going to disappear her. It's heartbreaking. And the fact that the IOC didn't, during COVID, go, we were planning on having the Winter Olympics there. We're going to reset, and we're going to have to pick somebody else and punt it or move it someplace. That's, whatever. So, let's see. What is it saying about Gen X? Curious for Gen X. Oh, yeah, there you go. Cures for every sickness I had as a kid. Vicks Vapor Right, Chicken Noodle Soup, Canada Dry. So, yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah, that's your day. Shout out to the balding Gen Xers in front of me, the Lords of Acid shirt. You a real one? Oh, the Razzies are coming up. Oh, the 70s, when a kid who blew out their candles over the top of an ashtray a foot away from an open beer while someone held a lit cigar in their face. Yeah. Milli Vanilli, the most Gen X meme ever, just crossed my Facebook feed. Milli Vanilli announcement, they are pulling someone else's music from Spotify. Ouch. If only people, what? Gen X Harley, we kind of invented, perfected the slacker mindset. Why do you think we only got yes man and borderline octogenarian managing U.S. collapse? I'm a loser, baby, so why don't you go? What? If only people understood their true power. Oh my God. Replying to Jack Posobiec. Yeah. This is, by the way, this guy is I would presume a right winger because of this. Yes, because the person he voted for lost. Oh, this is the Pulp Fiction thing. I don't know why that became a thing either. High School 89. Do you see? Oh yeah. Is that Ricky Rackman? I knew that kid. It's like behind the scenes footage from like Stranger Things casting session. So glad I grew up in the 70s and 80s. I did so much stupid shit and there's no record of it anywhere. Yeah. Well, that's the other thing too, is that millennials and here's my concern, millennials, for you guys. And this is a genuine concern. The hippies became the yuppies. The peaceniks who marched in the street against Vietnam and all that kind of stuff, by the time they hit their 40s and 50s, kind of flipped more than anybody. And the extremity of your youth in a lot of ways informs the extremity of your later years. And so there's a big chunk of millennials that are going to flip hard right when they get older, because they're, instead of just having a couple of disillusioned moments from your childhood that make you kind of doubt singular things, you get disillusioned with all of that. And because you come from an extremist mindset, you flip that entire way. LimeWire, that's right. Eddie Vedder covering Purple Rain. Oh yeah, he just did this. I never meant to cause you any sorrow. I never meant to cause you any pain. Only one time see you laughing. It sounds like he's riding on a covered wagon. Only want to see you laughing in the purple rain. Purple rain. Purple rain. That's what it sounds like. It's pretty solid Eddie Vedder for not doing it very often. Purple rain. He died of dysentery, right? Purple rain. Oh, look. It's how Tucker Carlson got rich. Special offer, safety-colored rain poncho with your Salisbury steak. Yesterday's whisper. Oh, Flashback Friday. Toking up with Jeremy Andretti, Daniel, a.k.a. the Karate Kid, Johnny Cade, and my personal favorite, Eugene Martone, immensely talented Ralph Macchio. Don't smoke. This is like an after-school special about smoking. Can you dig the classes of Gen X Instagram in 82? I was 14. Beer was a prop. I wasn't drinking. Check out my friend's wall. What? Wait a minute. She's 14. Oh, the beer was a prop. Okay. Good Lord. Yeah, that looks like the wall. Yeah. And she looks 35. She looks like one of my mom's friends. She's 14 years old. The official cigarette of the 84 Olympics. Marathon. Well, I suppose that makes sense. I'm not going to be late. I've got 20 minutes. Well, 10. I was one of the hippies, but stayed liberal. Well, that's the thing, is that the liberal part of it, they didn't flip over. The super activist zone of those are the people who completely flipped or checked out. So they either were completely involved in this one thing and then went, fuck that, and went the other direction, or they were completely involved in that and went, fuck that, and didn't vote ever again, like lived off the grid like Ted Kaczynski. And there is a shit ton of millennials who are going to do that. Sorry, get used to the idea. Yeah, you guys have any idea how many Scott Bayos and Ted Nugent you guys are going to have? People in voice when this year's Super Bowl halftime show comes on. Somewhat or extremely likely to vote for a socialist candidate. Gen Z 64, Millennial 74. I would like you to note, this is the same thing that shows up. And by the way, somewhat and extremely are two totally different things. When you mush them together, you get these giant numbers. When you cut them in half, they look really depressing for the extremely. This is the same thing. I put up a chart a day before yesterday about Medicare for all, because somebody was talking about that. And I was like, look, the reality is millennials support Medicare for all more than anybody. Millennials do. Gen Z is down from their support. You understand what I'm saying? The millennials are the spike. These are the hippies. These are the 60s, 70s. And then dunk. This is how it ebbs and flows. That's how it happens. I'm telling you. I'm not even advocating at this point. I'm just telling you how people feel about it. And if there's anything to be informed about, is how are you advocating for it? Are you doing it in a way that is making the next generation less likely to support it? Or are you making the next generation more likely to support it? If you like it, then you're doing all the wrong things because the trend line is going down. So point I'm trying to make is, and in the extremely, it's way down here. And if you look at like millennials, 33% of millennials support Medicare for all. 33%. That means 64%, 67%, whatever. Yeah, 33. 67%. Well, I guess there was a wiggle room of dunno in there. But the rest of them are against it. 66% of millennials are against Medicare for all. Can I? Yeah? Gen X says Medicare for all. No, you don't. And the same thing with Gen X. Gen X is even lower. And if you tell them Medicare for all means getting rid of all private insurance, it drops to like 12%. And again, this is not about your personal feeling about it. This is not about my personal feeling about it. This is generationally and the volume of people. The silent majority. They were the people who died in World War II. The boomers are who they gave birth to. The silent generation just fought in wars, ate canned beans and Spam, and worked. They're against it. What alternative idea did they have? A mixed package of reforms. Yeah, and yeah, that's a good point, Jimmy, because in general, they vote less. And they, okay, let me explain this to you, because I don't, like, let me see if I can find this, because I think it's worth having. Let's, my phone's upstairs. Did I go? Okay. I want to show you this chart, because somebody brought it up, and I, to look at, and I was like, yeah, that doesn't say what you think it says. Because they were trying to, they're like, face, it's super popular, it's 70%. And you're like, no, it isn't. And if you want it to be, great, but get at it, because you got some work to do. Let's see, and there's my stuff, and I got to scroll through all my. By the way, don't forget to follow me on Twitter if you don't already. Let's see if I can find this, because I posted this chart as a picture. Man, this is a crazy weekend news-wise. Yeah, here it is. Okay. So this is what I'm talking about, okay? This is on student loan debt, beg your pardon, this particular chart. But it charts almost exactly the same way. They fall into the same, like, yes, the same people are checking the same yes boxes, okay? This is student loan debt. Forgive all student loan debt. There's several categories. One is forgive all student loan debt for all Americans. Then there's forgive all student loan debt for lower income Americans. That would be means testing. That's what I'm for. Forgive some student loan debt for all Americans. Then forget some student loan debt for lower income Americans. Don't forgive any debt at all. Don't know, no opinion. Okay. Millennials are for forgiving all student loan debt at the highest number of anybody. Still, 66% are against it, or don't care, or don't know. This is in a chart where like 70% support some sort of, no, they don't. Because the means tested versions for both the lower income Americans version, either giving them part of it, giving them a break, which I think is a great idea, especially in certain areas where there's a societal interest, nurses, teachers, sewage workers, like there's tons of stuff. I can flight, like FAA staff, air traffic controllers. You might, as a society, you might not have enough of those, and you might want to incentivize people doing that. If they had a choice between, they're flipping a coin on what career they might want to have because they want something to do, they can feel a sense of accomplishment about, that their life isn't about their job. These folks might lean a direction if you help them, right? Dictators and tyrants want their people uneducated. Yes, but also people have the choice whether or not to educate themselves. That's also true. So what you want to do is encourage education post high school. Anyways, point I'm trying to make is millennials support total loan forgiveness more than any group. And they still only do it at 34%. They don't have a plurality. And they vote at a lower level than this group and this group and this group. So their 34% works out to about 8% of the voting public. You can't tell me you care more about something if you do less about it. But I marched. Yeah, but you didn't vote ever. Or you do it intermittently. Or you think that voting for Trump or allowing Trump to get in is like that'll show him, then the whole thing will crash. And so what if a bunch of people die? Why is this a reasonable evaluation? It's time identification. I mean, again, this is generational. You'll see. And again, in one generation, it drops off 10 points. These are the people they're more Gen Zers who are voting than millennials that are voting 1-to-1. And the millennials are a bigger generation. There are more millennials than there are Gen Zers by a little bit. And yet fewer of them vote than this group. And this group supports this less. And it's the same with Medicare for all. Why not just make college affordable? Not smart enough. Well, no. That's what most are for. If you look at it, then you're in this category. You're in this make it affordable. Either help people who are low income by supporting them, or give people a break on the cost. If state universities, all kinds of ways you can shave off, cost these days. Yeah, I am a Gen Xer, correct. And I'm in, depending on how you measure it, this category or this category. I'm in this 15% or this 15%, depending on what it's for. Philosophically, honestly, that's how I feel. I don't feel that way because I'm getting money from, I went to big university and they're funding me to tell me to say something. I genuinely think that's the way to go. There you go. What the fuck I was or am, or labels. Yeah, I know. The labels don't really help, Al. I agree. 10 minutes. Thank you. Thank you. I can see, I've got the window open over on this screen over here. So if it pops on and I go, oh, gotta go by, I'll let you guys know. And again, Democrats support this 27%. People who identify and vote as Democrats, 27%. A little over a quarter within the margin of error. Independents, 18%. Republicans, not at all. And they're active. Don't forgive it at all. More millennials believe that than Gen Zers. Look at baby boomers and Gen Xers. Still only a quarter would be able to shut it down, and a bunch of them don't have an opinion because they're afraid to give an opinion in some ways. But look at the Republicans, independents, Democrats. But there's no difference between the parties, guys. Right? There's no difference. What's the difference? What's the difference? Right? Two pairs of pants, two legs in the same pair of pants, right? I have 9 minutes. It's 8:50. It's 9:51 my time. Yeah, this is about student debt. And the way they establish this is forgive all debt for lower income Americans, forgive some for all Americans, some for lower income, don't forgive it at all, no opinion. And this is, like I said, this is pretty consistently how Medicare for all does as well. And everybody's like, the reason this won't pass is because everybody's in the pocket of big pharma, and if we just got money out of politics, this would all change. This is the voters. This isn't a poll of age groups currently serving in government. This is a Gallup, I think. But they're all like this. This is not an outlier. This big pharma is not paying off all the voters. Quite the opposite, one could argue. People who have been convinced not to be for Medicare for all are convinced by saying they would lose what they have. Well, they would. Which guitar are you going to show them on my right? That's a good question. Are they informed or uninformed? That's a generational question. Yes, I've gotten no Coke money for telling you this. How are you watching the clock? Because I'm going to be on Midas Touch on their podcast at 10 my time. So I've got 7 minutes or 5 till we pop over and start. I have to set up and be on there. Which reminds me, I got to put on my headphones so that I'll be able to hear what's going on once they do. So, we're the ones paying Big Pharma. Exactly. And even though we're paying Big Pharma, we recognize that to some degree, we're benefiting from part of this system, or we wouldn't let it go on. It would be too overwhelming, and it isn't. The ACA made major reforms. I believe, for example, in a public option. Oh, the other thing too is in that 70% Medicare for all number that you keep hearing about, more than 60% of the people who are for it, in that more than 60% of the 70%, believe that Medicare for all is a buy-in for adults 55 and up. Not Medicare for all, just Medicare available for all, meaning you could buy into it, meaning a public option. That 70% number, the majority of those people in every poll believe that when you say Medicare for all, what you mean is that anybody who wants to can buy into it. And that ain't what it is. And when you tell them that, like I said, support drops to 13%. How they are trying to privatize Medicare. Well, they can try all they want, but they're not going to be able to. Unless, of course, we allow Republicans to take over, because that'll show them. Yeah, I won't be live with Midas. I think they pre-record it. For-profit healthcare is extortion. Well, I would say price gouging in healthcare is extortion. Unless you believe that doctors and nurses and hospital staff should live in poverty. Because technically they make a profit. They get more money than the effort they require to do the work. Yeah, and by the way, don't worry about trolls. We have trolls. You have no power here. Don't worry. Yeah. Thank you so much, Mary. This is why I look forward to God's government. Healthcare hospitals are closed. What hospitals are closed? 40% of Medicare clients are managed. Okay. You're not noticing that them must make you want. Yeah. Trust in doctors is only 50%. What does that mean? If I get a second opinion, does that mean I'm at 100%? And by the way, what does that mean to you? When you see those kind of polls, trust polls, does the public trust? How's consumer confidence? Half the consumers are like, yeah, I'm cool. And the other half are like, fuck, I'm strapped. And well, we'll just average it out at 36%. Right? Most of those kind of polls are ridiculous. Dentist trust is 4 out of 5. Yes, but only when it comes to chewing gum. No doctor should not live in poverty, but neither should they be uber wealthy, nor hospitals make obscene profits. But I would define uber wealthy, and what's an obscene profit if you have to handle emergencies for free at some point. Most of the hospitals, especially in where they're most used, run on a shoestring. Still. My creepy what? Yeah, single payer, absolutely. That would create a ballast for competition. Because the private industry would have to, it's just like private schools. We have private schools and public schools, right? Part of the thing that keeps the cost down of private schools is that they're not the only game in town. You go to public school and get a solid education. You can. I went to one. So if it didn't exist and you had to pay for education from scratch, the cost of education would be way higher. And it was. And that's why we have a public education to kind of level those out. You can have private security if you want. You can hire a bodyguard, but you also have police. Right? You can make a private road to your house, but you also have the roads that everybody uses. Why not a public option? They don't want to compete with a public option. Maybe they can't handle the competition on something that has a narrower profit margin, right? Privatized equal pork barrel. Pork barrel isn't about privatization. The term for, as far as pork in a bill is stuff that's just for local areas. So a bridge in my district, that's pork. That's so I can show off to my constituents the way all the Republicans who voted against the infrastructure bill are doing right now. Oh, as humans are striving to be more comfortable, yes. Oh, please show me my bridge. That's what the term means. That's where it comes from. All right, I'm going. I got to bug out. I'll see you guys later. They're going to bring me in a couple seconds. So I will see you this afternoon, 3 o'clock, for the House Parks Megaworldwide. And I'm just going to sign off now and go back to my own screen. Hold on. I'll go back. This is my, what do you think? Boring screen? This guy? Nope, I can't do that. This guy. Or should I just have my big, like, everything on there? Be a little subtle. I think having the Venmo on somebody else's show is a bit bad form. So I'll just stick to this. There's enough ego here. There's my first name and there's my last name behind me in a ghosted form. So, all right, I got to go. They're going to call me over there. I'll see you guys later. Take care of yourself and take care of somebody else. And I'll see you this afternoon. Thanks, everybody. Bye. Okay, bye. And then here's the end of the show for a second. Wait, hold on. There's no theme song right now. I'm just leaving right now, and I will see